morning. Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds, a 30-minute conversation with leaders of mission-based organizations. I'm Rebecca Tuttle. I'm the founder and principal of Grant Right Now and Grant Writing for Good. I'm joined today by my co-host, Cynthia Rojas of 2 Year Growth.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Cynthia. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good. I don't know. It's raining out, but I feel really good about today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's warm. My God, it's warm.
So today we're going to talk about pivoting during fundraising and events. How do we maintain our fundraising revenues, our fundraising efforts and momentum? How do we maintain donor engagement and also keep our community supported? So I'm really excited about this show because Cynthia, you and I both have background in nonprofit, but we also have background in fundraising and events. So I can't wait to see where today takes us.
Yeah. And it's been a year of having to pivot. And so instead of hating it and dreading it, I've just been embracing it. So let's just pivot.
Let's dive in.
Pivot.
So what did you see before? What was fundraising and events? What was it like before the pandemic?
Oh my. So I worked at an organization where we did an annual gala that would have upwards of 500 people. So lots and lots of people, huge auction, 200 items in the auction. We would have keynote speakers that were either popular or just wonderful speakers, and just amazing. And we would move the place every year. And as the years went by, we got more and more creative. We started doing our events in really creative places. Like we once did our event at the Peabody Museum, which was amazing. Yeah, which is a museum in New Haven. But if you can imagine big dinosaurs, and it was gorgeous. We also have, they still have a signature event. That's a breakfast that used to yield about 200 to 300 people, and early in the morning. And then we would have other events. So we had in-person high-touch events, right? Where we allow time for networking. We did a lot of, I don't know what it's called, smoozing.
Right.
Re-engage.
Non-social distancing.
Right. We could hug people back in the day, but lots and lots of high-touch events that yielded a big turnout.
They were fun, and then everyone would talk about it for days and weeks to come. I can't wait till next year. That was so much better than the previous.
Yes, that's exactly. And the lead up, right? We would build campaigns to lead up to it. And it would, we would plan about 5-6 months out. So there was a lot of intentional communication that led up to the event. Oh, those were the days. You just gave me great memories, Rebecca.
It's funny. I think on our first episode, we were talking about how we are going to have to change what we're doing for fundraising and events, and that we were all going to show up all dressed up on coffee time. Do you remember we talking about that? We never did that, so we have to do that.
We should, because I miss getting dressed up. And PETA, who's not with us, by the way, she took a day off. Yay, PETA! Yay. She talked about how these fundraising events, one, you often go to things that are very close to your heart in terms of the mission of the organization, but also they were a time for you to wear a fancy dress if that's your thing, put on your best face, and bring your partner or bring a partner along and just have a great time. And I love fundraisers, by the way, but I like to get dressed up. So for me, it was also about that. I would just bring friends, get a whole table, make it a whole night. Oh, those were great days, Rebecca.
I want to touch on some things that you said, because back then, we've been doing this now over 20 years, right? Fund development, all of our work with nonprofits. And back then, there was no such thing as social media, but we still pulled off successful events. So I look at it like this. If we are restricted as to how many people can come to our events, they have to be outside, weather permitting, whatnot. we still pulled it off without social media and the social sphere that we engage in now. We can totally pull this off, absolutely pull this off, and pivot in fundraising and events now. It's just exercising creativity, drawing in from the more experienced planners, right, on your team, and then drawing in from some of the new creators in fundraising and events and put them on your team. And together, just colliding both of those worlds, you could have a dynamic fundraiser, just the same memories, just the same excitement and enthusiasm. And I think it could be a tremendous success, because what everyone's looking for right now is something fun, something social, something different, because we're tired of kind of being in the same, pandemic momentum,
You're right.
So
You mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, this is an opportunity. It's not a detriment. And so when we talk about pivoting, we're pivoting forward, right? We're not pivoting because something's broken. We're pivoting because the sky's really the limit on the creativity now.
I just love the words that you use, and you're very intentional, this idea of pivoting forward. And I think you said something that was really important. Bring in the next generation. Those were not your exact words, but you were implying bring in some new people to your development team. And traditional fund developers, right, are usually people who've been in the industry for a long time. They deal with wealthy donors, is very relational, and focused on increasing their donation. And there is value to that. There really, really is. But those are also the organizations or the individuals who are having trouble during this time, because we can't do the events. We can't do the high touch experiences. And so this is when you need the next generation to come in and teach us, how do you want to learn about organizations? How do you want to be a part of them, so that you can expand your diversity? So I love what you just said, Rebecca.
That's great. I teach a class, fundraising in a pandemic. And I also like to have data when I'm teaching, just to show some of what's possible, what's worked, some of new opportunities. And the majority of the businesses that started out in 2020, 78% of them were profitable. And over 65% of them were started by millennials and younger. So there is definitely opportunity to engage a younger generation in your fund development and your fundraising events, and also in your grant writing, because the one thing that I know to be true, and funders remind us of this all the time, is they want the people you serve, the communities you serve and bring good to be involved in the process. And what better way to involve the community in the process than to involve them in your fundraising and events?
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. And I think millennials and definitely Gen Zers may be a little different in terms of the amount of involvement they have, but I have to tell you, they're all about values.
Oh yeah.
So, they may not be willing to lead a to be the chair of a fundraising event, but I'll tell you something. They want to hear from you. What are you doing to bring value to the community, right? How are you helping to solve a problem? So we do experience this generation as being really focused, hyper-focused on values and mission. And so being sure that that's the language you're speaking, right? Mission is the love language of Gen Zers. They're all about mission and values.
Right. And they're quick. They know the tools, they know the tech, and they're quick. Turn around quick. They know they have the social engagement. They grew up in the social sphere that's different than the one that previous generations are used to. Combine the two, because fundraisers and donors, they're not one singular generation. It's all generations of people that give to a cause that resonates with what they feel inside is important to them, right? Yes. Everyone has a purpose to themselves, missions and purposes they care about. It's our job in fund development to connect those two worlds. And why not do that through a multi-generational effort? you're going to have the most dynamic fundraiser and event. And when you do, invite us.
I love that. I'm writing that down. This idea of making fund development multi-generational. I can't spell generational, but I'll write it down. But tell me now, I'm interested to hear from you. Why does pivot planning excite you? I mean, you were really excited to have this show. I could talk pivot planning all day, but how about you? Tell us what excites you.
Sure. So my background is fund development. I've been a development manager. It's grant writing, fundraising, all of that. And I am always looking to raise those right fit funds for organizations, not just whatever funds are out there, right?
Yeah.
The mission has to be complementary. My door is open, so you can hear the birdies today.
I can. I was wondering if that was me. I was like, is there a bird in my house? Because that sounded very loud. It's spring. It's spring. That's what it is. Yay.
So I always look for that uniqueness, that creativity that's going to help our proposals get to the top of the pile and stand out amongst everyone and really get to that unique differentiator. And so I get really excited about pivoting and fundraising and donor engagement because it helps us get closer and closer to that unique differentiator. And if we can stand out to the donors and the funders, then they're probably going to come to our fundraising and event. They're probably going to donate to our mission and also maybe, hopefully, give us a grant. So it's a win-win. And it's also optimistic because it gives us something to look forward to. And right now, people need things to look forward to.
I agree. So how do we, oh man, I forgot my question. I have to be
I'm going to close these birds.
I think the birds are starting to get to me.
Sorry, guys. This is real life here.
It's a lot of noise. But thank you, birds. Thank you for reminding us that it's a new season. It really, really is. Oh, we're so blessed.
So what are you seeing, Cynthia?
Yeah.
Because your background is event planning. So what are you seeing right now in your work with change management and organizational leadership with respect to what we're talking about today?
Thank you for asking. And I do a lot of organizational development. So there are organizations that are thinking about restructuring, right? Or like you said, about this new business development that's happening with our younger generations. What we're finding is that there are some nonprofits that are actually experiencing a lot of growth during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And so that's increased the challenge even more because to grow, and I mean the growth I'm experiencing is a lot. It's like in the millions. And it's hard to do that when you're restricted, right? And so part of that also comes, we also look at development and how they do their fundraising and things of that nature. And so some of the things that I have challenged, because I could be provocative sometimes, is a lot of nonprofits are known for reducing their development staff when they're having budget problems.
I know, and they're the ones that bring in the funds.
Yes. But for some reason, these individuals feel more disposable because you don't want to let go of program staff, right? That goes against your mission. And so development staff usually suffer at the opposite end. But what I've been advising organizations is, why don't you increase your development staff now? Like, imagine what that would look like. Now, that's hard to do if the money is not coming in, right? And you'll have to be creative. And that's information for another show because that's going to take a long time to talk about. But let's go with this idea. So you have one development person who's been managing events and now they don't know what to do. And you bring on 2 more people. What would that allow you to do? Well, one thing that the pandemic has done is isolated us. And while there used to be a focus on doing events to focus on the work and mission of the organization, transforming that to doing events to build community, to break that isolation.
Right. That's that community engagement piece that we're focusing on when we're pivoting. And we should be focusing on that anyway, because we raise those right fit funds in order to support our organization's mission so that we can deliver the services and programs to the community who needs it. Because if there were no community need, there would be no need for us, right?
Right. And so people are saying, oh, people are tired of Zoom. I have to tell you something. I'm on Zoom a lot, much like you, Rebecca. And yeah, Zoom meetings zoom me out. No fun. But I have to tell you, I have not been invited to a virtual fundraiser.
No?
And I would do a virtual fundraiser, right? I mean, I would go to one because that would be different and exciting. Now, I've gone to book parties. I've gone to a dance party. I do a weekly wine tasting. So, and I participate in these things because they're fun and different and don't feel like another meeting, right? So I don't feel there are a ton of people doing online events. And so for some people, that's been a turnoff. But again, don't make it about just your organization. What if you did something to build intentional community? I think in this isolation, that might go a long way, especially if your donors tend to be older. They're probably spending more time alone. Are you getting invited to online fundraising events?
No, but what I'm getting a lot of is capital campaign appeals. And but the interesting thing, because I look at them with a very sharp eye, because that's what I do for my clients, right? I help them with appeals. And they're not giving us, it's really important in a campaign appeal to let us know the outcomes that you've achieved as a result of the donor support. I'm not seeing that written into a lot of the solicitations that I'm receiving. And what I am seeing, though, is a lot of the damage the pandemic has done to organizations, which it's important to point out the need, but your emphasis should be on why this donor's contribution is important to get to these more favorable outcomes. And I'm not seeing that in the letters. And so I'm being more particular about who I give to, the causes I give to, and I'm giving more to the other causes instead of just giving, $25, $50, $100 here and there. I'm being more intentional about where I give and who I give to, because they're showing me the impact, and that's what's really important.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I'm not getting a lot of direct mail appeals either, and I'm not getting a lot of email blasts, and it's one of my other recommendations. So we talked about increasing your development team, right? But also talking to donors differently. I was talking to an executive director recently who told me he has a 4-person development team, and 2 of them, their full-time job is to talk to donors, meaning they have a whole communication campaign. There's an email. Yeah, there's an email campaign. There's social media. There is high touches going on via email or phone calls. Like, that's what they're focused on full time, right? Relating and talking to their donors. And they over communicate. And this is the time to do it. I'll tell you something else that the pandemic has done. When I talk to people, right, I usually ask people, how are they doing? And so people are usually honest and they say, they're having a hard time, or it's not a good day, or sometimes it is, right? But I wonder about the organizations that I have been donating to, and I have not heard from them. And I wonder how they're doing. And it would be wonderful to hear their small wins. I miss that because my hope is that they're doing okay. But if I don't hear from them, I get a little nervous. And I think organizations are missing an opportunity to be the bearer of good news, to be the messenger, to show me that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that people are overcoming these terrible experiences, that there's hope, that someone is working with them. And I'm not hearing enough of that. And the pandemic has presented that opportunity, and I think it's being missed. Rebecca, what do you think?
I absolutely do. When I served in development director, even when I was an ED or program director, I always made it a point to call my donors every single week. It didn't matter if I had to call 25 or 30 of them. I called them every week. They stopped by all the time. I couldn't get through a day without someone just popping in and sitting down. They just wanted to talk. And so that was a lot of work, yes, but it also yielded tremendous support for our organization monetarily, but the support for your organization isn't always a gift of money. That could be that they connect you with another opportunity for funding. They connect you with, like you said, buy a whole table with your friends. Then you're growing your donor engagement. And it could just be that they speak highly of your organization in the community so that you develop your reputation as a knowledgeable and capable entity that people can rely on. Yeah. I think what's happening now is if we fade into the background as an organization and stop talking to our donors, because let's be honest, the telephone and snail mail, they kind of went to the wayside, didn't they, in recent years?
Yes.
I love the phone. I'll call you.
Oh, right? Now?
I love to talk to people, right?
I love to have phone calls now.
Right. And so don't lose sight of that, because you don't want to lose touch with your donors and then only pick back up that conversation when we're all back together, right? Or when you need something. It's disingenuous and it's not authentic. Yeah. And donors want that authentic touch. So even if you don't know what to say, give me a call. I'll script with you. I'll practice with you. Because what I do is, aside from the social media piece of a social campaign, I have a number of clients right now. We're working together on a social campaign, on a communication plan, so that we can disseminate that to engage more customers and clients if they're my business clients, or engage more donors and speak more about your work in the community if you're a nonprofit. And I just want to say, these are the areas that we focus on. First is introduce your story. What are you about? Who are you? What are you doing now, right? Especially if you're trying to engage new donors. And then give people a reason to celebrate, a reason to laugh, a reason, like you're saying, to have hope and optimism, right? The birds were chirping. It was the crows in my yard. That was hysterical today, right? That's a reason to laugh. Right. Right? The other one is give people an opportunity to engage with your mission and your purpose. Is that through volunteerism? You could have volunteers calling donors, right? There's so many opportunities there. And then help people understand the impact. When I was talking about those letters of solicitation, give me more of the data, more of the impact that your organization is making. And so if you focus on those 4 areas, you could theoretically create a touch point every single week or every single month. And you just know today's Monday, the first week of the month, introduce the story. Second week of the month, give people reason to laugh, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And so that's how we build our social campaigns out. And I know I'm going on a long time, but if you feel stuck, like, I don't know how to pivot my fundraising, I don't know how to maintain my donor engagement, here are some things that work. Here are some things that you will enjoy doing. And it might just break you out of your social isolation as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I just blurred up. I'm not really sure why. But I'm still here. Little blurred. Little blurred. I don't want to touch a button because I'm afraid that something might go wrong.
Just put your hand like this and then pull it back, and we'll edit this out. Or leave it in because we're giving people a reason to laugh.
I love the blunders, but I love what you're saying. And I also, because we like to be provocative and this is about pivoting, you might have a new story, right? So you may not be able to tell the old story, but think about what's your new story. I was listening to the news yesterday, and I have to tell you, my heart warmed up because they were talking about vaccinating the homeless and the value that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has with this population, because it's just a 1-dose vaccine.
Oh, so the recurring return?
Right. So it's very hard with a mobile population to have 2 doses, especially when you have to do them within the time frame because of their high mobility. And all I could think about, and then you know how the news works where they show people doing stuff. So they're showing people vaccinating people. And I'm thinking, thank God someone's thinking about this. Thank God someone's doing this, right? And I think that this is where organizations can tell their news story. I didn't think about it until it came to the news, right? How are we managing our homeless population and making sure that they get vaccinated? And there's somebody doing that. And that is a cause that I think is worthy of supporting 100%. Tell your new story.
And when you're telling your story, that's a great story. That's a great story. You know, and when you're telling your story, don't just show the nurse or the person giving the vaccination. You can show that as a part of the story, but the story should be the conversation with the person who got the vaccine, how it's impacting their lives, what are some of their experiences through the pandemic. You know, let people in to talk to the people you serve. And if we can't speak to them directly or speak with them directly, just give us an image of who they are.
Yeah.
Instead of, we talked about this at length in a previous episode, don't keep calling people low income and underserved and marginalized. Give them identity. Say, this is a human being. This is a need that they have, and this is their experience right now. And this is our mission and how you can help support this group of people, this population. And that's a story that people want to hear. People want to feel good. They want to know that they're helping people, and they want to know how they can help people. And I think that's a great opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I think that if you're wearing the lens of let's pivot, let's do it differently, and let's maximize on this opportunity, you are going to be okay. And if you dare to be a little provocative and take the risk of hiring more people, build a team that makes your fundraising multi-generational, thank you for that term, like you really are going to survive this. You're going to be okay. You really are.
You are. And I had, just in the last week and a half alone, I have had 7 EDs and development persons reach out to me and ask me, do I know any grant writers? Do I know any development people? We have a gap in our organization. We're in the midst of hiring. And I look at that 2 ways. I look at it as though, is it that the organization is undervaluing the contribution of the person who fulfills that role, and that's why they've transitioned on? Mm-hmm. Or is it that they've gained so much experience that they want to move into a higher level, higher function within that development space, and they're moving on to better themselves? So there is a lot of opportunity right now to fill in gaps in development and fundraising space. If you have ideas on how to pivot, how to raise those funds at a higher level because of this newfound creativity, this new adaptation to the pandemic, because let's face it, this isn't going away.
No.
These fundraising shifts that we've made, they're probably going to be permanent.
Oh, yeah.
And not only that, we're going to have new opportunities to pivot again and again and again. And so if you're someone who has those creative ideas, those concepts, experience, then you're pretty marketable right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of organizations want you. So it's so funny because when I started out in this space, grant writers did not get any credibility. It was like, oh yeah, whatever, you do that, right? And now it's, I need a grant writer because I realize this is hard work. This is hard work,
yeah.
Right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
So just to see that ebb and flow has been really interesting. But if you have any calling to the development or fundraising field, think about how in your interview or in your experience there, what creativity can you bring, and what is your experience so far, and what do you envision for the future? And talk to people that you know who give to causes and see what would make them want to go to a virtual event or participate in something new. And those are the ideas that I would bring to my interview or to my experience trying to engage in a new role in development and fundraising.
I think we should do a show on, because I think that you are right, Rebecca, there are so many organizations looking for development people, and they're hard to find. But I think also nonprofits have this expectation, rightfully so, that they want individuals with a lot of experience, right? But we might be able to use this time to also build capacity with other individuals, and then groom them for when we need to do the next pivot. They will be ready with ideas and ready to fly with that. And so I wonder, given your experience, we should probably do a show on what are some of the what are some of the skills that are transferable for a development position, and even if they don't have the development experience?
That's a great idea.
Help build capacity.
And I'm going to be a little controversial. I'm going to push back on that a little. I think that we are in a position now where we could tip the scales to bring new, inexperienced development professionals to the space, and they could be just as successful as people who have done this for their whole career, right?
Oh, I think so.
Having that mentorship is important, but I don't know, because I keep going back to the data that 78% of the businesses, which were 65% started by millennials and younger, were profitable during the pandemic, and that included nonprofits. And you can't be profitable as a nonprofit, but revenue generating.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We should do a show on that. That would be really interesting.
Should. All right. Well, it's time to say goodbye. These 30 minutes go by so fast.
They do. What's your takeaway?
Oh my, I'm still grateful for that term, multi-generational, really developing a plan that hits the multiple generations that we have right now, who are experiencing the pandemic very differently. So each generation almost needs its own plan. And let's be radical. Build your development team. Build it. Let's see what happens. You won't be disappointed.
I'm going to put that in the comments. Let's be radical. I love it.
Let's be radical.
My takeaway is take risk. This is the time to take risk, because what do you have to lose? You have funding to lose. You have donors to lose, right?
Right.
But more importantly, take the risk, because you don't want to lose the ability that you have to serve community. So that's been a great wrap up for today. I thank you so much for your insight and your experience, Cynthia. We're going to welcome you back next week. And have a great weekend.
And Peter, we missed you. Bye.
We did.